Hi there. Concerning the word cashier, which someone asked me where I got it from, uh, I had to reply that I got it, either I received it myself, or some might say you made it up. Not traditional, in other words. And who can say, but someone must have made up a tradition in the beginning. Or did they receive that? We hope they did. Very hard to tell, of course, and obviously, you can only take somebody's word for it that they received it, whatever that actually means as well. Anyway, I think too much really. So kashir, it describes a word. It words which has the energy or the power behind the Gnostic rule, as I understand the Gnostic rule to be, and it's a good sacred word, so called, to either to recite or to chant or to use as some kind of anchor word in your meditation. And when I actually looked at this word, in terms of turning each of the letters into the Hebrew alphabet, so that I could relate it to the Western magical tradition and to the Kabbalistic tradition of the Western magical tradition, then that was it was quite interesting, really. I mean, I looked at Liber 777 by Aleister Crowley and Sefer Sephiroth and got 331, which refers to a grove in the Garden of Eden there. So that's an interesting reference to look up and to contemplate on as well, I suppose. But then when you actually look at each individual letter, um, so first of all, we're beginning with A and working backwards, working from right to left. We start off with the letter A, which refers to Alet. Alet, and I do apologize in advance for my terrible writing of the Hebrew alphabet. The Hebrew alphabet is actually based on yods. It's the way that the yods, or the root of all roots, are actually combined in different ways and extended and elongated. Anyway, but I can't do the script properly. This is supposed to represent Aleph or Alet, which corresponds to A, and has numerological value of 1. And it represents the beginning of whirling motions, and it is actually the whirling motions, not just the beginning. And we see that represented by a sort of 5-foot cross or swastika, which is going, of course, anti-clockwise as the Earth spins anti-clockwise, and it's kind of like the whirling dervishes or the whirling energy. Basically, the world, the whole universe is made up of energy, of vibration. Everything is made, well, energy and probability, I suppose, really, and quantum disturbance of one sort or another. So it's represented by this 5-fold cross, and at the centre of it is the letter I. So we've got the letter I, which is Yod, which is said to be the root of all roots. It's the root of the Hebrew alphabet. It is the actual tongue of the Lord. The Creator God spoke, "Let there be light," and there was light. And it's kind of like the root of the tongue. It's the root of all divine intentionality, divine as in creative divinity, that is to say. And the whirling motions begin with a single point, which is represented by Yod, and then going to the letter Shin, which means spirit, literally spirit. And that's made up of 3 prongs, each with their own little yod attached to them. Not very well drawn here, I must say. And the yods are pointing the wrong way for a start. Anyway, they represent three tongues of fire, and the tongues as in fire, as in Pentecost, of course, the Pentecostal movement, and but they also represent, of course, the three gunas. And the three alchemical substances, mercury, sulfur, and salt. So this is all very much finite world stuff. So the whirling motions are the root of roots, leads in fact to Shin, which is a sort of the spreading of the spirit wings, and the creation of the earth in 6 days and resting on the seventh. And you have here all of creation boiled down to really just three activities or three modalities: destruction, creation, and preservation. And this is represented by Shin. But then into this word Shia, it comes the Kaf, which means for hand or fist or palm, actually. It looks like an open palm. And so into the lower worlds, into the finite worlds, into the worlds of the demiurge, literally comes the hand of God, which is the hand of the true God, the hand of transcendentality. And the transcendental God reaches out his hand, which is a sort of represented by the Holy Spirit as a sort of pseudopodium of the transcendental God, and this literally comes down as a hand or as a chariot of fire. And sweeps the soul away from the finite worlds at death, and transports that soul up to heaven, back to the infinite realm again. You see, so it comes from infinity. This line here, and it goes back to infinity, and that's represented by Kaf, which basically has a numerical value of 20, and Shin is 300, and Yod is 10, so it's 331, which refers to the grove of the Garden of Eden, as in the reference given there. And the thing about, though, is that this is a word of power. So it's a word that sums up everything that one might have gained during life, and it sums up the lower worlds, the finite worlds, the created worlds, and the transcendental world, sort of conjoining together, as in this circle, represented by the circle and this ellipse passing through the top of the circle here, you see, which you'll be familiar with from other videos. The great symbol, the great sigil. So Kashia. And finally, the thing about this is that these words of power are very interesting, because at death, these words become fully translated. And there is a spiritual group and they talk about when people die, they talk about them being translated. They have translated, which basically means, I suppose, transcended matter and with spirit. But it means, in fact, that at death, this word, or the power words of various spiritual groups, are translated in their entirety to the soul as it crosses over. And upon that, basically, the soul and the consciousness that has reached soul awareness over life, this soul awareness gets the entire picture all at once. So Kashir, this analysis of mine now, is but a tiny little thimbleful of possible meanings that Kashir or any other power word could possibly have. And so basically that's what translation means. When you die, you translate the word, and you translate the logos. And the logos transcends flesh and transcends matter, and transcends evil, and duality itself, which is good and evil, and creates this extraordinary sort of vortex of understanding. It's like a sort of aha moment, that and you just get it, you get everything. You get the whole thing. And so finally, the final point is it, of course, in the old Golden Dawn system, the Magus would declare his magical word, the word with which he would understand everything in the universe and open all the doors to the occult worlds at once, etc., etc. So rather sort of grandiose kind of claim that I've discovered the word, and not the word of the Aeon, which is a different thing altogether, but the word of a particular Magus who has reached that grade. All very romantic, and all completely totally unhelpful, but except to the ego that loves to be patted on the head and said, "There's a good guru." like John Lennon did to Maharishi, apparently, allegedly. He went up to and tapped him on the head, which is a very insulting thing to do in Hinduism, and said, "There's a good guru." And of course, the Maharishi kind of laughed at this because he would think, well, yes, unto all is ego, and ego is everywhere, including within the enlightened souls such as mine. And who doesn't want a nice pat on the back or a pat on the head and complimented in a somewhat sardonic way, as John Lennon would apt to do, of course, with his cheeky Liverpudlian humour, which is pretty working class and doesn't like the airs and graces and all the stuff that people take on. And I've got to be a knight of the realm, or I've got to be, in exchange for goods and services, and contracts rendered. And don't forget to be on the honours list and all this. Honours. But of course, having said that, this is the word of the Magus. Of course, you've declared your ego, haven't you? Really, for all to see. But I'm just saying, it's said with a bit of tongue in cheek there about being a Magus. Anyone can claim anything, of course. You can claim the moon is made of cheese if you want, but either you've got to produce evidence to show that the moon is made of cheese, or you've got to sort of say, well, it's actually just sort of metaphorical language or symbolic language I'm talking about, really. It isn't really made of cheese. I'm not really claiming that, I'm sort of claiming something else, which the statement "the moon is made of cheese" represents, and then everybody says, okay, that's fine. But when we talk about grades and the stuff, all this hierarchical stuff with the Golden Dawn and all these Masonic creations of one sort or another, it's very much not to be taken seriously at all, really, on any level, actually. Just a sort of like Dungeons and Dragons and sort of like computer game, I've leveled up. Whatever that means. Oh, okay, so that's Kashir. And if it'd been Kashiab, of course, it would have been 333, and then we would have been in a lot of trouble. But luckily it's 331. And of course, 9 plus 1 is 10, so that's 10 of the Sephirot of the Tree of Life, which I add that just as a final note. So, use this word if you want to. See where it takes you in your meditation, see if it's a useful anchor word. See if it actually is a sacred word, or is it just a load of old nonsense that some geezer on YouTube has made up. I'll let you be the judge.